how the Central Waqf Council has all its nominees that at one point of time used to be Muslim, but under the Amendment Act, that constitution is going to change. There are going to be government officers that are going to be part of this council, and then he has juxtaposed it to the Hindu and Sikh endowments, where nominees are Hindus or Sikhs respectively for each of these endowments and each of these councils that regulate these endowments. So why is there an exception for the Muslim council that has been made for Waqf properties?
Look, this was one of the main points of deliberation when the JPC was formed over the Waqf Amendment Bill, and we have seen that how several of the parliamentarians who were part of the JPC on the Waqf Amendment Bill that was given the right in the budget in the last session. So clearly, there's a lot of deliberation went upon that how the Waqf Amendment, the Waqf board, which consists of all the Muslim people and few women leaders over there from the Muslim community. So now the argument is giving that now the government has allowed for 22 members in the Waqf board, and out of which 10 will be from the Muslim community, while 2 will be women, and while rest will be from other community. So a lot of discussion is going on the same, despite the government has given them some assurances. However, this needs to be looked upon that how Kapil Sibal is going to argue on this part, and how the CJI is going to react on all the arguments that are being made by Kapil Sibal before the Supreme Court over here. Back to you, Meg.
Okay, back to my guest. Let's hear it from you, sir, particularly about what the argument is on the constitution of the council that is going to regulate and monitor the Waqf board. The question being raised is, if the Hindu and the Sikh endowments only have Hindus and Sikhs that are regulating and being part and being the trustees of that endowment, why is such a provision not being allowed to be carried forward for the Muslim trust, for the Muslim Waqf board? Can you hear me? Advocate Fusail, the question is for you.
Yeah. So actually, I'll just say that the first and the foremost thing which every viewer has to understand is that there have been judgments of the Supreme Court where the Mutawalli has been appointed, who is a lady, and more importantly, a very famous family in this country, the Nawabs of Bhopal, the Saif Ali Khan's family. The Mutawalli is one of his sister. So there is no harm, and I think there have been judgments to this effect. But the major issue is with regard to inclusion of a person who does not practice Islam. See, you have to understand one thing, that what was the reason to bring in a person to manage the affairs of a Waqf, which is a religious body, or a property which has been created for a religious purpose. And more specifically, if I can say that it is a kind of a method which originated under the Sharia law, which is to be managed and operated by Muslims. And then the government brings in a law, and then they say that, there will be a person who does not practice Islam. So even, there have been instances where you hear a name of a Muslim person, but he may not be practicing Islam. So one who manages the affairs of a Waqf, he should be a practicing Muslim. So this is a point which actually pinches the community, the people of the community, that how will they, because you have to have a feeling, you have to have that kind of sentiments, you have to have that kind of emotion to deal with those properties. You have to be a Muslim, so in order to manage the affairs of the Waqf. But now, since the Parliament has passed the law and it is before the Supreme Court of India, so let's see what the court takes a stand on this point of view with regard to inclusion of non-Muslim in the affairs of a Waqf. Right. But definitely, I think there's one more thing which I just want to say at the last is this, that to have that it has been rightly said before the Parliament and before the court also, because I have not heard Mr. Sibal arguing. But if he has said so that you have institutions and endowments and SGPC which is completely filled with the person who actually practices that particular religion. So then the government should have created a kind of an endowment act or some kind of a a universal law which could have been applicable to all the religion. You should have clubbed it. The charitable institutions, the endowments managed by different communities and sects, including the Waqf. But why choose only one particular subject? This is also a point because they cannot be a discrimination. And
Right. Okay. Then and another point, I want to get your inference in this. When Kapil Sibal argues and says that inheritance of property in Islam takes place after the death of an individual. So why is the government of India interfering in this case even before the property is transferred to the successor, the inheritor?
yes, so he has rightly said so. See, because instead of bringing these piecemeal kind of things, the government, the government of India, when this government has a complete majority in both the houses, so they should press for the uniform civil code. Why not have it in that way? So everybody will be treated equally. Why they should be carving out for Muslims or for any other particular sect or a religion? Because this is more or less, with all caution, I can say that this is a kind of a pick and choose policy to satisfy your own set of people, to satisfy your own mandate. You run into these things, and then these things come before the court, and then court is going to examine this issue. But even the court will examine it in the light of the Sharia law, like we have seen in the case of triple talaq. The government of India brought in a law. The Supreme Court passed a judgment to this effect. The Supreme Court examined all the aspects, and then it said no, that as per the Muslim law, there is no such thing as one go triple talaq. So let the court examine this point also with regard to the Awqaf, and let the court come out with its own view. But I think, in my personal opinion, that's completely my personal opinion, the government of India, after forming the committee led by Mr. Jagdambika Pal, they should have also taken into consideration by appointing at least 5 retired Supreme Court Muslim judges, or some judges of this court who retired and who are expert in the Sharia law. And there have been many non-Muslim judges who have given very fine judgments with regard to Muslim law, Sharia law. So they could have been taken into the wagon, and they could have given out a much better, wider
Okay.